Hey, yo! Welcome back to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another live stream. Today, I am going to share with you how $39,000 is going to be the bottom of this bear market based on past bear markets. $39,000 is projected as the bottom of this bear market based on the past bear markets, and this is all based on this indicator, right? All based on this one indicator that we are going to be using. So this is going to be an insightful live stream, and we are also going to talk about today's weekly close. All right, today is a very big week for Bitcoin. We are going to see a weekly close. I'm going to talk about if you want to have some faith in the price of Bitcoin moving forward, if you want to have some hope in $60,000 as the potential bottom of the crash, I'm going to share with you exactly, the price Bitcoin must close above. So we got about 3, 4, maybe less than 4 hours before we get a weekly close. Bitcoin above $70,000 looks really, really good. But we got some work to do. We got to go up a couple $1,000s to have, any hope in $60,000 as the bottom of this crash. And I am also going to share with you, just looking at the last bear market, I'm going to try to kind of predict, where I think we are in this bear market, just based on, the similarities of the current week and, 2022. So this is going to be an insightful live stream that is packed with, a lot of value. And I highly recommend, you stick around, watch the entire thing. And, if you have some altcoins, because we are going to get into the altcoin market. If you have some altcoins that you would like me to analyze, put them in the chat. But this $39,000, I'm actually going to stand by it. And, I've already pinned it on X. I'm just gonna leave it this right there, until sometimes late this year. $39,000 is the bottom of this bear market. And what that means is, we have potentially another 40% crash going from today's price. So, from 70,000 to 39, you're looking at a good 40% crash. If this is your first time right here, guys, just do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. If you're watching the live stream and you haven't already, hit the like button. The algorithm is something that we gotta try to keep up with. We gotta try to keep up with the algorithm. This $39,000 target is not, it's not exaggerating. It's not clickbaiting. I absolutely believe $39,000, just based on this quick research I just did, based on past bear markets. This is not clickbaiting. I'm absolutely not clickbaiting. I am standing behind this $39,000 as a potential bear market bottom. All right. And of course, this is more likely to take place, this year, late 2026. So if this is your first time right here, just do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. If you're watching the live stream right now, do me a favor, hit the like button. I'm not going to waste your time. I want to jump straight to, the chart of Bitcoin, and, I want to start this conversation. So, all right, let's talk about it. $39,000 is projected to be the bottom of this 2026 bear market. What I'm going to share with you is, just looking at the last bear markets, how this one indicator has predicted every single bottom of the bear markets. So we are going to use the Fibonacci indicator, the Fibonacci retracement. So if we go all the way back to, our very first bear market, going all the way back, I'm going to start from, should I start from right here? Probably. Let's start from 2013. I wanted to start from the 2015, but let's start from right here. So, this was a bear market, this one right here. If you look at the retracement, you go from $260 all the way down to around $47. So, using the Fibonacci retracement, this bear market, we retrace all the way down to around, I think the 78 Fibonacci target. So if you go from the swing high right here, guys, all the way down to the swing low, all right, all the way down to the swing low right here, the target was the 78 Fibonacci target, and that was the bottom of the bear market, around $63. So if you fast forward to our very next bear market in 2014, the bottom of the bear market was also the 78 Fibonacci retracement target. So you go from $19,000 all the way down to our swing low. All right, swing low is all the way down here around $1,600. So if we go all the way down here, guys. So this bear market right here, all right, the bottom came in just right around the 78 Fibonacci target. At the time, you're looking at a $4,200. And, the bottom came in just right around $3,200. So that was right close to the 78 Fibonacci target. You fast forward to our very last bear market. If you go from $69,000, you go from the swing high all the way down to the swing low, which was $3,000. BTC bottom exactly around the 78 Fibonacci target. So we can clearly see, in past bear markets, in every single one of our bear markets, we bottomed exactly around the 78.60 Fibonacci target. So based on, this type of retracement and based on the 78 Fib target, if we were to have exactly the same retracement, where is our current bear market most likely to bottom? So we have to go from the swing high of $126,000 all the way down to the swing low of $15,000. And ladies and gentlemen, this gives us a target of $39,000. This is where our current bear market is more likely to bottom. Plus or minus, maybe $36,000 instead of $39,000, maybe $40,000 or $41,000. But I believe, if we repeat exactly the past bear markets, this is where, the bottom is more likely to be. I think we're looking at a $39,000 Bitcoin. So $39,000 is a target that you got to try to keep your eye on, as we move towards, the latter stage of 2026. And this is why, I pinned this on X, because I absolutely stand behind this. not because it won't happen or not because it's going to happen, simply because, based on historical bear market performance, this is exactly what Bitcoin has always done. Yes, guys. All right. I know about history. You know, you know what they say about history. It doesn't often repeat, but it often rhymes. And I don't want to go against, just like the 4 year, Bitcoin cycle. I don't want to go against what Bitcoin has always done in the bear markets. Sometimes late last year, a lot of influencers, when BTC was still around, in the $120,000 range, because they had a specific target in their mind of where the bull market was going to top. A lot of bigger influencers, they started pushing out this narrative that the 4 year cycle was no longer, something to take serious, was no longer to be respected. And that was pushed back. Now instead of a 4 year cycle, they were talking about a 5 year cycle. They were talking about, a different reason why the market will continue to go up. Liquidity was one of the reasons. M2 money supply was, another reason. And right now, ISM is a new reason why we should continue to have faith in this market. And also, when we talked about if the price goes below the 50 weekly moving average, you may want to concede, because that is officially a bear market. And if you ignored, the 4 year cycle, if you ignored not relying on, these other narratives, then you got your head blown out, basically, because you're looking at this market and it did exactly what every single bull market has done, and that is a 4 year cycle, 100%, where BTC is in a bull market for 3 years, and BTC is in a bear market for 1 year. So I'm looking at the current bear market, and I'm looking at previous, every single bear market Fibonacci retracement. We tend to go back to the 78 Fibonacci target. And because that's exactly what we have always done, I am going to stick with that. All right, I'm going to stick with $39,000 as a potential bottom. All right, we don't have to, but $39,000 is my target going into this bear market. We are in the bear market, of course. So for some of you guys who have been asking, hey, where are we more likely to bottom? Well, here we are, $39,000. Let's see if it's 39,000 or something else. And at the end of the day, even if it's not $39,000, who cares? What we are going to try to do is identify when Bitcoin is finalizing this bear market, when we start to move from a long-term downtrend into a long-term uptrend. That is when we are going to try to get in a position ourselves early enough, and try to capture or try to maximize the upcoming bull market. Let me know in the chat. Do you think, we make it to $39,000? Do you think that is a little bit more, lower? Do you have any other targets in mind? And if you do have a target, just make sure it's not based on opinion. Make sure it is actually based on some sort of, facts. All right, it's got to be factual. It's got to be based on data. It's got to be based on something that you can actually present and you can actually prove why you came up with, whatever the target is. $39,000 is based on every single bear market bottoming at the 79 Fibonacci retracement. If you're new to the channel, just do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. If this is your first time right here, all right, hit the subscribe button. If it's not your first time and you haven't subscribed, still hit the subscribe button. If you're watching the stream and you haven't already, highly recommend that you smash the like button. Gotta keep up with the YouTube algorithm. All right, got to keep up with the YouTube algorithm. All right. Anyways, let's talk about this weekly close, because this is, look, you think the last couple of days, the last couple of weeks have been important. Like, you don't understand how significant this weekly close is, moving forward. Like, you really don't understand how important this is. So let's talk about, if you have any hope, all right, if you are in the camp, the $69,000, this is not, I'm not in that camp. But if you are in the camp, the $69,000 is the bottom, or was the bottom of the crash. The only way, right? The only way for that to have, any sort of legs to actually stand on is if Bitcoin manage in the next, I think it's the next 2-3 hours. We get a weekly close, I believe, around 8 p.m. Eastern time. So we're approaching 5 p.m. So you got about 2-3 hours. If $60,000 is the bottom of this pullback right here, or the bottom of this crash, BTC needs to close above $44,000 and $400. Let's just say $44,000. All right. Forget about the hundreds of dollars. If BTC and 60,000, if 60,000 was the bottom of the crash, we want to see Bitcoin at the end of this week. We want to see Bitcoin in the next 2 hours, 3 hours, close above $74,000. If we can close above $74,000, the probabilities of $60,000 being the bottom of the crash is got something, percentage-wise, very high to actually stand on. If we close below $74,000, look, like it or not, the market doesn't care. That is a confirmation that we're going lower, all right? If we close today, all right, in the next 2-3 hours, if we close below $74,000 and some changes, that is a confirmation that we're going lower. And this is something that we've actually talked about. The price of Bitcoin going to 60,000, it doesn't really mean anything. What's important is, those weekly close. What's important is when levels are broken. What's important is the trend of the market. So Bitcoin, closing below 74,000, even if the prices are $70,000, is extremely bearish, guys. Doesn't matter if we're not still in the low $60,000 range. It doesn't matter if, the price of Bitcoin went up $10,000, right after crashing to 60,000. None of that matters in the grand scheme of things. Once we close below 74,000, I'm telling you guys right now, it is lights out, man. So one of the things that I'm actually trying to do right now is, I'm trying to push out a lot of this content because, it's a lot of influencers out there who still believe that we are in a bull market, even though we have lost, basically every bull market structure that you can think of, in terms of a market that has got, an uptrend structure that has already been broken. The weekly is got lower highs and lower lows. Key moving averages such as the 21 weekly, the 50 weekly, we've already lost them. Other indicators, such as a dev cross, we had a dev cross already. 21 weekly has crossed below the 50. Momentum indicators, extremely bearish. The 200 daily moving average, the price is well below its 200 daily moving average. What else? The monthly pullback. We are already in a monthly pullback. The MACD extremely bearish on the monthly. RSI extremely bearish on the monthly. So every major key, indicator that you can think of is in a bearish market right now. It is 100% in the bear market. So there's a lot of influencers out there who are constantly pushing out this narrative that this is a buy opportunity. So a lot of influencers who are pushing out this narrative that we are going to see an altcoin season and that this is an amazing buy opportunity, and that altcoins who are already down 80, 90%, this is a time where you should be building a position. But I am one of the few, who's looking at this market and is being very honest, regardless of people's opinion. So, I'm doing my part, pushing out as much as I can. And hopefully you guys are getting value out of this. But yeah, today's weekly close, the next 2-3 hours are extremely, extremely important. Can Bitcoin manage to go up $4,000 and then close above 74,000? Absolutely yes. But let's see, let's see if Bitcoin actually gets the job done. So the other thing that I also want to talk about in regards to Bitcoin is, I want to try to predict where we are right now using last bear market, because I think there's a lot of similarities. Over the last couple of weeks, I spent, time comparing, this bear flag right here to the one we had in 2022. And probably some of you guys at the time, were not very convinced, but the result has basically been very similar. The one in 2022, we ended up breaking down and we had a major crash right after that. And that's exactly what we got, guys. After this bear flag was over, we ended up breaking down and we had a major crash all the way down to $60,000. So let me kind of try to show you where I think we are and, basically what we experienced this week. So in my opinion, this right here is very similar to, if you go back to 2022, I believe it's very similar to this one right here, guys. And let me try to paint a picture for you. So back in the last bear market, we had this bear flag on the weekly. If we go to the daily, this one is very clear. But anyways, you had a bear flag on the weekly. This is a bear flag. All right, if you think this is a different pattern, that is perfectly fine with me. But to me, this is a bear flag. And then once we lost the flag right here, guys, this was the breakdown. This was a confirmation of the breakdown. And we ended up with this move, all the way down to, so we actually went from 40,000, straight down to $25,000. All right. And this was the acceleration. And let me show you how crazy this move was. In a matter of just 1 week, BTC dropped from $35,000 to $25,000. This was a $10,000 loss, literally, guys, in a matter of a week. But we ended up closing the week, around $31,000. So think about that, guys. We go from $35,000 straight down to $25,000, but we ended up closing the week above $30,000. But let me show you how major this was. When we broke down, all right, a major support was around here, around $33,000. And when we had this this weekly close, the price closed around $31,000, but we needed to close above $32,000 in order to have, any sort of hope, all right, of this 25,000, being the bottom of this entire crash, the crash from $69,000. So when I think about this move right here, when I think about this week, this was the week of, May 9 of 2022. When I think about that week and I think about the week that we just had, or the week that we are about to complete it, BTC starts from 79,000. We crash down to $60,000. Yo, chat, this is a $19,000 loss. Just think about that. In a matter of just 1 week, BTC loses $19,000. But guess what? The price of Bitcoin is back above $70,000. All right. We got back $10,000. We are still in a loss of $9,000, but it looks like we're about to close below this major support. So all right, in order to have any hope that this was the bottom of this crash, you need to see the price of Bitcoin by the end of this week, which is the next 2-3 hours. You need to see the price of Bitcoin above $74,000. But in my opinion, the same way we lost this support right here around $32,000, I believe is exactly the same way we are about to confirm, closing below $74,000. And I believe we are going to see a continuation to the downside. So in my opinion, just kind of looking at the last bear market, I think this is our May 2022 price action. And when I look at this weekly right here, I don't believe we are going to see a weekly, day cap bounce or a weekly consolidation. Like, I don't think we get anything like that. I actually believe we are going to see a continuation to the downside, just like we did back here. Right? Like, I honestly believe we are going to see a continuation to the downside. And if you remember, we didn't really get a weekly consolidation until $17,000. Like, if I'm looking at this BTC weekly setup, like, I just think, this consolidation, this weekly day cap bounce that everyone is asking for, we just had one. Like, we literally just had a weekly day cap bounce 3 weeks ago. So 3 weeks ago, we get a weekly day cap bounce. 3 weeks later, just because prices flashed down, more aggressively, do we get another? Yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't know what to make of this. What I do know is, if we do get a weekly consolidation, it wouldn't surprise me because, we are definitely inside of like a lot of just price action. But I think, we might get something. But price has to be somewhere in the low $50,000 range. Like, I really, really think, before we get anything, you're looking at a BTC in the low 50. Because, Chad, just think about this, right? If our absolute bear market is going to be this $39,000 target that, I just revealed to you guys, doesn't it make sense? Just kind of looking at this 39. Let me just actually put 39 right here. This is 39 right here, guys. Doesn't it make sense? We crash all the way down to 52, 53,000, somewhere around here. Just think about that, guys. Just be with me for a second. Doesn't it make sense we come, all the way down here? All right. And then we might get something. I don't know how this will look like. And then we flash down, for the final time, and then we start building a base for the next bull market. I think it makes sense this way. Like, I don't see how, we consolidate, and then the final crash is going to be bigger than. Chap, I don't know anything about Elliott waves, but what I do know in Elliott waves is wave 3 is normally bigger than every other wave. So you get wave 1, you get wave 2 right here, and then you get wave 3, and then you get wave 4, and then you get the final flash. So let me see, Elliott waves. Let's look for the bearish ones, right? Like the, what do you call those? The corrective moves? I don't know anything about Elliott waves. I don't want any of you guys to. If I mess up, the terminologies and all these other things, I don't want you guys to, to Let me see. I'm trying to see. Let me see. What does this look like? So, anyways, yeah. So you kind of see what I'm looking at, guys. You get the drop right here. All right. This is wave one. You get a retest, which is wave two, and then inside of each wave, I think you get the A, B, C. Yeah. Like, look, I don't know what I'm looking at, but kind of get the idea, guys. I'm kind of looking at the absolute basics of Elliott waves. So if you think about this picture right here, I don't know if this is the perfect example, but you get the first wave, this is the drop. You give the second wave, which is the retracement. I want you to take a look at wave three. Wave three is normally bigger, and then you get another retracement, which is wave four. Wave five is not as big as wave three. Wave one is not as big as wave three. So when you think about this, I think this has got to be bigger than, not just the last one, but also the first one. So the first wave is, you go from 126 to 80, and then you get a retracement. So, when you go from here all the way down into the low 50s, I think this move is bigger than the first one. And it would damn sure be bigger than the last one. So if you look at the last bear market, to me, that is basically kind of what that looks like. So if you look at one right here, this is two. Look how big three is. This is three right here, guys. Three, you go from 48,000, straight down to $17,000, and then, the final wave is really not much. This is the final capitulation, and then you start building a base. And remember, in wave, the last wave, you are basically at a place where dollar cost averaging is the right strategy. By the time you're somewhere around here. Even if you go back to, I'm not an Elliott wave expert. I just want to make sure I'm very clear on this. But even if you go to this bear market right here, guys, this is exactly what I'm talking about. So, I mean, look, maybe the way I'm counting this maybe is not right. But to me, I will look at this as this is one, this is two. But look at three. So three, you go from here all the way down. And this is four. Look at five. Five is actually like a double bottom. All right, am I doing it right, guys? All right, so you look at the 2018 bear market. You get one, you get two, you get three. All right. I mean, anyways, look. So yeah, look. The moral of the story is, I don't think we get some sort of a weekly bounce. Could we get a daily bounce? Yes, but remember, a daily bounce is not a weekly bounce. A weekly bounce could potentially go on for 1 to 2 months. So when you think about the last one, we put in a low around the week of November 17. We don't top until the week of January 12th. So this is months right here, guys. So this is why when people are asking for a weekly day cap bounce, to me, it just doesn't make any sense, because, how do we consolidate for November, December, January, a good 2 months? Right, because you have a few days in January, you have, a few days in November. So that, to me, that's 1 month. And then you have the entire month of December. How do you consolidate for, 2 months, and then you go down for only 3 weeks just to consolidate for a couple more months after? Yeah, it doesn't make any sense to me. So my belief is that, look, we don't have to go down as aggressive as we just did. But I do think, a good 3-4 weeks of downside price action on the weekly, all right, before we go sideways, and then, we go down again towards the end of 2026. That's kind of how I'm looking at this, to be honest. And when if you think about this, right, if the top was in October and we're looking at 12 months of a bear market, you're basically looking at October 2026, right? Think about this right now, guys. We are in early February, right? February, there's only a couple more days left. The month is very fast, over sometimes very soon. If we get 3 or 4 more weeks of a continuation of this, right, you basically are pushing into March. Just bear with me for a second, chat. If you get 3-4 weeks, let's say 5 weeks max, all right, the weekly candles might not be as big. Let's say next week we continue down, and then we close around let's just say 65,000. Let's say next week we close 65,000. Let's say the week after that we close around, $59,000. That's 2 weeks in, right? And then you go the week after, let's say you close, somewhere around 55, 54. That's 3 weeks. Let's say the week after, the other week you close around, basically within the same area, but, price is going down. But the weekly candles are not as massive and as aggressive as, the first three. All right. If we can do this for about 4 or 5 weeks, probably 6. I don't want to keep adding a few more weeks to it, but think about 4 or 6 weeks. All right, before we get a weekly consolidation. 4 or 6 weeks, Chad, you're looking at early April. All right. And let's say we consolidate for about 2 months. 2 months we consolidate. 2 months consolidation, that pushes you into late June, early July. All right, late June, early July. And then you get the final flash. So the final flash, you're looking at another, let's say 3-5 weeks. 3-5 weeks. Chad, you're looking at August, you're looking at September. All right, that is basically October. So this is why I just don't think, we are anywhere near, a weekly consolidation. Like, I don't think you're going to go sideways on the weekly. You might go sideways on the daily. But if you go sideways on the daily, that's only about, maybe like 5 days, maybe 6, I don't know, maybe 6 days. But the entire week, weeks, not days, I think we continue down. All right. I think this is going to be more of a straight line all the way down into the low $50,000 range. And this is why, actually, when I think about 39,000 and when I was thinking about 50,000, like, I actually don't think the bottom, I think we're definitely going below 50,000 because we are so close to 50,000 that I don't see how the bottom comes in at $50,000 when we're literally right there. Like, we are literally around $50,000, and it is extremely early into this into this bear market. But let me know in the chat. What do you think? Do you kind of have the same thoughts as me? $39,000. Once again, just in case some of you guys who are just joining me right now, how did I came up with 39,000? Well, chat, every bear market retracement has bottomed around, the 78 fib retracement. So if you look at the last bear market, you go from the swing high to the swing low. This was the bottom, 78 fib target around, $15,000. If you look at the bear market before that, if you go from the swing high, $20,000, all the way down to the swing low, which is maybe like $250, I think. So if you go all the way down here, all right, look at the bottom, guys. It's exactly right around the 78 fib target, so around $4,200. The bottom comes in around 31. If you would have bought right here, like, that's like a generational buy right there. And then you look at the bear market before that, like our, this bear market right here. So if you go from the top all the way down to the bottom, all right, once again, all right, this is the bottom right here, guys. Let me actually get rid of a lot of those things. So you can clearly see how accurate the fib retracement has been, throughout Bitcoin's bear market. So I'm looking at the current bear market. If we go from the swing high, which is 126, to the swing low, which is $15,000, it gives us a $39,000 target. So somewhere around here, BTC is where we're more likely to bottom. All right. Should I go lower to like $32,000? Possibly, but Yeah, keep your eyes around $39,000. And I am definitely going to stand by. I don't know if I should call this a prediction, but I'm definitely going to stand behind my research and, just behind what BTC has always done. But just looking at the fact that, it's $70,000, it is early February. The bear markets normally last for about 12 months. Yeah, I don't think, we hang around 50,000, 60. I think we're going lower. We are absolutely going lower. So let's talk about. All right, and once again, look, don't judge me on this, area wave things that I just kind of talked about. I don't know anything about area waves, but I just know based on, just based, I guess, kind of the idea of it and, the basics. I don't even know if I know the basics, but chat, it is what it is, man. Who cares, right? Anyways, look, if BTC wants to close above $74,000, it's got to pick up some steam right here because, otherwise it's not looking pretty. All right, let's talk about altcoins though, because, why not? A lot of you guys are, heavily invested in the altcoin market. So let's talk about alts. Well, actually, before I talk about altcoins, let me talk about something right here. I don't know how many of you guys are in MicroStrategy, all right? And let's kind of predict where is MicroStrategy more likely to bottom, just looking at the last bear market. So in the last bear market, now many of you guys are probably not going to like this. In the last bear market, if you go from this top right here all the way down, so we're looking for a swing low. So let's go all the way down here. All right. This was the bottom of Sailor Coin. Like the retracement was just unbelievable, guys. So if I'm looking at Sailor Coin right now, if we are to repeat, now I know things have changed. They got more Bitcoin and, times have changed. If we were to repeat, the last bear market, I mean, we bottomed around, this is like 60% below, the 78.6 fib target. If we were to bottom, below the 78 fib target, you gotta have to, now this is gonna hurt a lot of you guys, but just be with me right here, guys. If you go from the absolute top all the way down to our swing low, which is absolutely crazy. Like right here, guys. You're looking at strategy. Not only, and I actually think this is going to be accurate, not only do you lose, the 78.6 fib target, which is around, 127. Chat, we're going to lose 120. We already lost 127. I think Sailor Coin, guys, I mean, look, I'm looking at $30. Like 30 and 48. Like this is a place or an area of interest in my opinion. All right, the last bear market we were 60, I think 60 below that. Like this is a good 60% below. So I'm just going to say somewhere around 48, probably 50. This is a good place to look for entries, somewhere around $50. I remember talking about the possibilities of Sailor Coin going below $100. And I thought, even at the time, I didn't think it was crazy. I just thought, bear markets are bear markets. If BTC goes down about 60%, this one right here, you're looking at an 80, 90% retracement. So Sailor Coin, you guys, you're looking at the $50 range. But anyways, so in the short term, though, I think we have a very big move coming. Like, I think we might spend some time in this range right here. And it wouldn't surprise me if we actually go lower. Sailor Coin in the last bear market, we had some crazy bear market rallies. Like after this drop right here, we had like a 70% rally. This was our first weekly bounce. This was a 65% rally. So I do think the bottom is in. I like this weekly close right here. And I think, this time, due to how much we actually crashed without a bear market rally, I do think we could potentially push all the way, even all the way up into like, very close to the $200 range. So I'm just going to say a good 80% move from the lows of this crash, bringing us all the way up to around $190. I think this is more likely. So to me, this is an area of interest. This entire range right here is an area of interest. Once this is over, all right, this might take a couple months to play out, though. It might take about 2 months to play out. If you look at the last bear rally, how long did it took that? So this was about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's 2 months. So about 9 weeks. So yeah, I'm looking at about a good 2 months. So think about the month of probably early April. February, March. Yeah, early April. Price is going up, probably around $200. So I think, if you see price around here, that should be a good time to get out of a position. And if you can buy some puts, somewhere around here, I think you do very well in the final crash of MSTR bear market. The bottom is more likely to come in, sometimes early summer. I'm going to say that because, we actually topped way, way early. So the top came in around, this is November of 2024. In the last bear market, we topped around February of 2021. And we saw a bottom somewhere around May of 2022. So how long was that? So if we go from right here all the way here, this is about 455 days. So 455 days, if we get the same 455 days, that, am I doing this right? No, yeah, this can't be right. It looks like 455 days, you're basically looking at, yeah, you're looking at right now, you're looking at February. No, I'm looking at this. Okay, you go. 455, yeah, you're looking at February. Yeah, this can't be right. So I think this is going to be a more, lengthy bear market. And I think by summertime, we get a bottom of this bear market. But yeah, look, man, let's talk about altcoins. Enough with some BTC proxies. I know you guys are big on altcoins. Chat, give me a second. I'll be back. Just give me 1 second, please. All right, all right. So yeah, let's jump into the altcoin markets. Once again, look, if you guys have some stuff, like if you are, looking at some altcoins and, you don't know what to make of them, this is why I'm here. I am here. I'm here for you. So let's talk about it. Look, if there's one thing I can share with you guys is stay away from anyone that only looks at the market one way. And I'm talking about the people who are only looking at the market from, like a bullish outlook. Absolutely stay away from those guys. So let's talk about altcoins. Yo, chat, in my opinion, You should absolutely do nothing when it comes to altcoins. Look, altcoin season, you have to forget about it. You should focus on individual altcoins and only do something when there's a clear sign that the bottom, and I'm not talking about a short-term bottom, I'm talking about long-term bottoms are coming in. If I'm looking at Solana, they are pushing Solana big time on X. Don't do anything. All right, like honestly, I don't understand because what's the rush? Like what's the rush? What is all about? Why do you feel the rush to jump into this market? If I'm looking at Solana right here, I am telling you right now, this thing looks really, really bad. Solana looks really, really bad. If you have any hope that Solana is completing its final stage of a bear market, or if you don't believe this is a bear market, if you believe this is a normal pullback, then what you need to see the price of Solana in the next 2-3 hours close above $95. If Solana is below 90, if Solana is below 95, this is all that you need. This is a confirmation that you need that it's actually going lower. The same way when you were looking at Solana back here, the moment we closed below $126, that was your confirmation, because when you lose a major support, the confirmation is right there. All right, the market just confirmed to you that it's not done going down. That was at 126. All right, you had a weekly close at 117. If you would have simply got out of your position, you would have avoided, this major drop all the way down to around 71, which was a 44% crash. So I'm telling you right now, anyone that's pushing Solana, most of those guys are bag holding a bunch of these altcoins, and you are their exit liquidity. Send the price back up so they can exit those positions. Anyways, if I'm looking at Solana, I mean, I would even, entertain the idea of it's a buy opportunity until I see what Solana may do, if we do manage to come back into this range right here. All right. Chat, you are going to have time, man. Do you see this right here? Do you see this consolidation right here? You are going to get this. All right. Forget about the entire. Look, you are going to get this right here. This process right here, this is a long process. This is almost, 8 months, 6-8 months. All right. This process, you are going to get it. All right. This is 366 days. That is almost an entire year, man. You are going to get a process, not like this, but what I'm saying to you is, when it's a bottom, you are actually going to see it, because during the process, it's going to take time. Right? Nothing goes up in a straight line. I don't think you get a V-shaped recovery. I don't believe that. Right? I don't believe you are going to get a V-shaped recovery and you are going to miss, the chance to buy in the next bull market. Even Bitcoin is going to give you, the opportunity to build a position. All you got to do is be patient. So if you look at Bitcoin, you had time to build a position right here. Look, this process right here takes time. Right? It's not going to be a V shape where, chat, if the market V shapes recover, that's okay. There's other opportunities in other markets. So I don't know why there's a need, to jump into a position. I don't know what's the rush. Like, I don't know what it's all about. But I'm here to save you guys. And I'm here to tell you that you need to be patient. If I'm looking at Solana, I'm not touching anything. All right? Continue to go down. Have your moments to bear rally. Do all of that. That doesn't mean anything. The moment I see Solana start doing anything like this on the weekly, where price is actually not going down, and we're doing some funny stuff like this is when I'm going to start paying attention, because something is happening. Finally, something is happening. Finally, I have a reason to say dollar cost averaging, is the right thing to do. But until then, why bother? Chat, it's not just in the cryptocurrency market. Let me show you an example using Robinhood. You could have bought Robinhood right here, guys. All right, there's going to be a process. This was a process right here. And this process took about, if you go from right here all the way here, this process took about 658 days. You are going to see it. The price is actually no longer in this, impulse. All right, you don't have these, impulse moves to the downside. What you get is, a market that trends sideways, breaking structures, all right, retesting key levels, breaking out, all right. You are going to get a process. All right, guys. If V shapes recover, it's okay. Buy higher. If it's going to go up for the next 2 years, your entry still is going to be good. All right. I can show you guys numerous of examples. All right. I'm not cherry picking. Let's take a look at Nvidia. All right. Even Tesla, guys. There is going to be a process. You only see a V shape during a pullback in a bear market. Look at this right here. This is Nvidia right here, guys. The process is right here. Look, this is the process. All right, price has been in a clear weekly downtrend. And then all of a sudden, it goes up. It gives you a pullback. And then it goes up again. And then it continues up. Oh, what's the difference this time? Oh, wait. When you look at this pullback, this is a weekly higher low. You look to the left. Oh, this looks like an inverse head and shoulders pattern. Oh, you still don't believe that this is the beginning of a bull market? That's okay. The moment you break above $19, all right, now, this downtrend is fully reversed. Yes, it's perfectly fine. You missed, the first 80% move. But if this is an asset that has entered a long-term uptrend, getting into Nvidia around $19, this is what your profits would have been. All right. I mean, look at this right here, guys. Look, this is a 7x. This is a 700% returns. If you would have dollar cost average, I guarantee you, most likely your average is higher than $19. Because it's a lot easier when you look back and you say, oh, I should have bought around 10, 12. Well, if you started dollar cost averaging, let's say when the price, was right here around $25. Remember, at 25, Nvidia had already crashed about 20, even if you started dollar cost average around $23. All right? Because how do I know that, the bulk of your capital was not deployed at $23? All right? Like, how do we know that when you say you dollar cost average, this was just a little sprinkle that you were just picking up by, the bulk of your investment was around 23. Now, worse off is if you started dollar cost average around $30. But once you wait for the trend to finally reverse, now you're in a position where, you're jumping into something that is going up. Because if you dollar cost average here, what if price would have continued all the way down to around $5? And this is what I'm trying to save you guys from. Because the truth is, we don't know. All right, we don't know what Solana bottom is. Like, we don't know where the bottom is going to be of Solana. It could potentially go back to around $8. So if you start dollar cost averaging at 86, all right, like how much are you dumping at $86? Is it 70% of your capital? Is it only 10%? Like, how do we How do we know? And what if we continue with this until price is around $2? And I'm not saying we go into two, but I'm just, trying to help you guys avoid, like this is, yeah, this is something right here. Don't do what could potentially ruin your finance. Uh, so if I'm looking at Solana, I think price is going lower. We talked about plenty of these other altcoins. Zcash is absolutely cooked. Talked about Zcash all the way back around $400. Actually, at 700, I told you guys the top was already in. $700 Zcash. I have it somewhere around here. Zcash. $700 Zcash top in. It's better to take your profits and go somewhere else. Right here, guys. Look, Zcash is probably topping right here. Only way it continues higher. You know what he got to do? He got to break above 746. Guess what? Got rejected. 746. Look at the price of Zcash today, 238. And I'm going to be honest with you guys. This is not the bottom right here. You might get a relief rally. Tick, 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 tick. And then the next time we crash, yeah, we're going below $100. We are going below $100. So, do you want a dollar cost average into Zcash? Have you been dollar cost averaging into Zcash? Or, are you, approaching this in a smart way and, just staying on the sideline and see how, this all plays out? Something I talked about recently is that we need a complete reset because this is absolutely a nightmare to have over 32 million cryptocurrency tokens. It doesn't make any sense. One of the reason the cryptocurrency market has been so bad, this bull market, is because we are past the eras where you invest based on the white paper. You are past, those eras where you invest based on what, these protocols are going to accomplish and what products and services they're going to provide. It's 2026. All right, this has been a research paper. They say Cardano is a research paper. The entire cryptocurrency market is a research paper because almost 20 years into this experiment, no one, excluding, us who are very passionate about this industry, no one else is interacting with these protocols. There's no one that's using Ethereum on a daily basis. All right. Not your sisters, not your brothers, not your cousins, not your neighbors, not your mom, not your dad. No one is using any of these protocols on a daily basis. No one is interacting with them. Right? Absolutely nobody. The cryptocurrency market can disappear today and our lives wouldn't change at all. All right? It's nothing. There's nothing that changes in your daily basis because, the cryptocurrency market is no longer here. But you can say that, when it comes to other corporations or other businesses, when you think about Apple, right? I'm live streaming right now. My computer is an Apple product. All right. I'm reading your chats using my iPhone. This is an Apple product. All right. You can't say the same thing when it comes to these altcoins. When it comes to, you can even include, Bitcoin, a bit of a different story because, as someone who comes from a country where, the money is basically worthless and, inflation is just, to the roof. I know the value of BTC in terms of, being able, not in the short term, long term stuff. I know the value of being able to, to preserve, value. But yeah, look, we have reached a stage where we need a complete reset. Like we got to move away from, this is what Ethereum is going to do in the future. You are going to be able to do this, and no, 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 buddy. We're almost 20 years in. We want to get to a place where, hey, I'm interacting with Ethereum or Ethereum protocols or something that's built on top of Ethereum, and this is something that I'm actually using on a daily basis. And if I don't have this, part of my process, part of what makes things easier for me on a daily basis, or I can't afford, I can't afford to be without it. I think that's the place where we need to be. So, yeah, look, I think this bear market, this is not the one that you want to mess with. And this is why I don't think any of us should dollar cost average into these altcoins. Looking at price is one thing. And if we are going to agree that we are only here to speculate and we don't care if, these protocols are ever going to produce products and services that people are eventually going to use, if we agree that that's the market and, that's the ultimate end goal of this market is just to speculate and, to trade between, you and me, perfectly fine. But, I think, I'm at a place where, I got to be very honest, chat. I'm at a place where, I wouldn't touch any of altcoins until I see that we are in a bull market. All right, look, I'm not here to buy the bottom of the bear market. Absolutely not. I need to see a turnaround, TA wise, in whatever altcoin that I'm interested in. Because otherwise, if this is our 2000 .com bubble, then I want to make sure I don't dollar cost average into something that is forever, all right, that is going to be forever crashing. And 2-3 years from now, I can tell you guys, 32.8 million tokens. Yeah, I don't think we're going to have that many tokens. Excuse me. Anyways, subscribe to the channel, guys. Hit the like button. Hit the like button. And, if you guys have some stuff, that you would like me to analyze, put them in the chat. This is a fantastic question. Why do I think MicroStrategy is going to go up, but BTC is... Hold on, let me see. BTC will go down. That is... Hold on, hopefully I'm reading that right. I think I am. Sorry, I was looking. Yeah, why do you think strategy will go up? That means BTC... No, strategy has always led Bitcoin. So basically, we could get a day cap bounce, a MicroStrategy stock, while the price of Bitcoin is going down. What that means is that, at some point, BTC is going to have is also going to have its bear market rally. They don't have to rally at the same time. If you think about the last bull market, at certain times, MicroStrategy stock was going crazy, but Bitcoin was basically going sideways. If you look at the top, we actually topped way, way early, I believe. So, Sailor Coin, the top came in around, this is November 2024. So think about this, right? We actually topped in November of 2024. Bitcoin top came in September of 2025. So throughout the bull market and the bear market, MicroStrategy has actually led Bitcoin. All right, they don't have to move exactly, the same time or on the same page. So if I'm looking at this, and I'm just looking at MSTR on its own, I think we are due for some sort of a bounce. We are due to build a bit. And look, if you actually think about like where are we in terms of like a trend line, there's a couple ways to look at this. This is the biggest one right here. I think this is going to be the bull market breakout. And then there's also this one right here, where we go from here, touch right here. So I think, we are due for a move to touch this yellow line right here. Now, that could be maybe somewhere around 170s, maybe somewhere around 180s. Like, I don't know how this is all going to play out. But I think we are due for, a move to retest this trend line on the weekly. If you go back to, the last bear market, we basically kind of have the same thing. This bigger trend right here, this is your bull market breakout. All right. But you also have, this one right here where you get like a nice trend. You get a nice trend that was broken. So if I'm looking at this, a move like this to test this trend line wouldn't surprise me. Maybe we go above it. I don't know how this will all play out, and then eventually we get the real breakout, and bull market. We a long way from there though. So that is complete different outlook. I think this one you're looking at, basically 2027, man. You are looking this one you're looking at like a long time from now. You are looking at late 2027. So this is long waiting. Anyways, chat, hopefully you enjoyed the stream. Just did over an hour. There's really nothing else to talk about. And if there is, we'll touch base tomorrow. But definitely enjoyed this. As always, guys, give me a follow on X. Currently got about 618 of you guys following me. I do have a Discord if you guys want to join my Discord. It's about $200 for 6 months, $350 for 12 months. We trade both stocks and crypto. And look, if you wanna check us out, if you wanna join a community where you don't have somebody tell you the dollar cost average in the forever crashing market, I think we are the right place for you. No financial advice is provided right here. Make sure you guys do your own due diligence. Make sure you do your own research. And it's about time. We're about to watch the Super Bowl. Who are you guys rooting for? Of course, guys, I am with the Patriots. All right, I am with the Patriots. I think, it's about time we get back to glory days. Let me know. Do you think the Seattle Hawks are going to win this, or do you think the Patriots, all right, the dynasty is making a comeback? Do you think we get that? All right. What else, man? Is there anything else to actually talk about? Like, is there really look? We can scroll down on X. I mean, some of the stuff that goes on here is just absolutely wild. At least if you're asking me. Drop $60,000. Do we have any? Let me see. Ala Madrid, right? Yeah, this brother, man. This brother is funny. This brother is a Solana shield. I mean, some of the stuff he posts about Solana is just. I mean, I think he's just having fun with some stuff, but yeah, it's crazy, man. Look. Chat, you see guys like this, you gotta be careful. You got to be careful. He's basically comparing, Solana's current dropped. Oh my god, man. Yeah. This is a wild place. You gotta be careful. You see this brother right here, he's got 76,000 followers. If you if you don't do your own research and you blindly follow something like this looks very convincing. Let's be very honest, guys. Like this chart right here looks very, very convincing. And he could be right. But I'm telling you right now, you gotta be careful. Got to be careful out there, guys. And that's not the only thing that I came across. There's a lot of stuff out there. Let me see. Yeah, this guy right here, man. He's the biggest the biggest shield for me is Raul Paul. I mean, Raul, man, you gotta come outside and you gotta talk to your SUI investors. Raul is looking at the fear. Yo, child, let me tell you something. Okay, RSI is the other thing that I wanted to actually comment on. Yo, chat, oversold RSI doesn't mean anything in a bear market. If you want to use the RSI indicator, instead of looking at how oversold the market is, focus on divergencies. Like focus on what is the RSI doing and what is the price doing. If the RSI is trending up and price is trending down, that is something that you need to kind of, pay attention to. But oversold RSI is meaningless. And I give you guys an example. Look, MicroStrategy on the weekly, we hit oversold. All right. At the time, the price was around, $170. We ended up going up to around, $200. But look at where the price is. All right. Look, an entire retracement all the way down to $100. And oversold RSI is exactly what we still have today. All right. Oversold RSI in a bear market is meaningless. That's not something that you should rely on. It's not a reliable strategy. It's not a reliable indicator. It doesn't mean anything. This is what I try to say to you. All right. Let me show you. Some of these altcoins, they're going to be extremely oversold for a very long period of time. Look, Solana, RSI on the weekly is oversold. If we go to the daily, probably even worse. All right. You go to the daily, look at RSI Solana, guys. You could have bought Solana based on this indicator oversold around 116. Yeah, the price is below $100. Was that a good strategy? Was that a reliable indicator? Absolutely not, guys. The reason, look, oversold RSI is the same as overbought RSI in a bull market. All right. To me, when I see RSI oversold in a bear market, to me, that is sign of strength. Whoever is in control of the market, the strength is with them. So when I see oversold, to me, the interpretation is, the bears are extremely strong right now. I don't want to do anything. All right. I am on the sideline because I know oversold, like you can stay oversold for a very, very long period of time. And one of my favorite quotes, man, when it comes to, financial markets, is that the market can remain irrational or stay irrational. What's they say? The market can remain irrational longer than you can stay solvent. To me, this is, take a screenshot of this, put it somewhere in front of you. So the next time you want to fight the trend, this is going to be a reminder. All right. Stay on the sideline. Wait until the trend is over. All right. So oversold, overbought. You gotta know what kind of market you're playing with. If you overbought, you can stay overbought for a very, very long. I'm gonna show you guys an example before I log off this thing. Let's go to BTC because we want to see some stuff, guys. Guys, look right here, right? Can you imagine in the last? Let me get rid of my MACD, right? Right here, guys. Can you imagine if you would have sold Bitcoin because your RSI was overbought? All right. This is that 2020 something bear market, you guys. Bull market, excuse me. We were overbought from October of 2020 until April of 2021. Just think about that, guys. All right. That's about, no, March. That's about 5 months, you know, a market is overbought for straight up 5 months. Let's see the price. All right. October, excuse me, October of 2020, the price of Bitcoin was around $12,000. Think about that. Think about selling Bitcoin because we were overbought in 2020. You would have missed BTC going from $12,000 to $60,000. Overbought, oversold. Terrible, terrible way to look at the market. All right. When the market is overbought in a bull market, that is a sign of strength. All right. The interpretation should be this is a sign of strength, not a weakness. When the market is oversold in a bear market, that is a sign of strength in weakness. All right. You have more sellers, now more buyers. You need more buyers to come in. All right. You look at bear markets, look how oversold, man. All right. You come right here on the weekly. Of course, on the weekly is not going to be as bad as the daily. But here you overbought from June 2022 until July of 2022. I mean, price goes from like 29,000 all the way down to $15,000. Can you imagine if you would have bought BTC at $29,000 because RSI was oversold? Gotta be careful out there, people. You got to be careful out there. Anyways, look, I think I've done my job. I don't know how you guys feel, but I feel like I've done a pretty good job, looking at this market and like really, really analyzing it from what BTC could potentially, accomplish, or the target that we could potentially hit in this bear market. Let me know your thoughts, man. $30,000 looks very attractive. I think that's a place where if you are a gambler, I'm not calling you guys gamblers, but that's a place where, if you like risk, I think the risk becomes very attractive around $39,000. Anyways, appreciate you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the stream. Go Patriots. All right, hopefully you watch the Super Bowl and have some fun. Who's doing the halftime? Who's doing the halftime today? Is it? Let me see. Super Bowl halftime show 2026. What's his? Oh, it should be a good one. Oh, Bad Bunny's doing the Super Bowl halftime. Oh, this is going to be fire. Wow. Yeah, this is definitely going to be fire. Anyways, guys, appreciate you guys, man. Hopefully you enjoyed the stream. Smash the like. And what does Jasmine have to close above to be bullish? Look, Jasmine is just not gonna be bullish because I'm not even hating, to be honest. If I'm looking at Jasmine, I think BTC's weakness is not. Let me see. So if I'm looking at Jasmine, right? So Jasmine will have to close above basically where we are right now. But I don't see a bullish Jasmine while Bitcoin is bearish. Like I don't see that at all. With Jasmine, I think we continue down and, at some point we turn around and, we start going up. Even if I'm on the daily, like let's be honest. So if I'm on the daily right here, like, we got some, Jasmine's got some work to do, a lot of work. The weekly looks really bad. The monthly looks really bad. Yeah. Jazz it's not. And even look, when I say that we gotta close above certain levels, I'm not saying we're gonna be bullish just because we closed above those levels. But what I'm saying is that if you can close above those certain levels, that is step one. There's steps that comes after, and that is breaking structures. So if I'm looking at Jasmine, we got we got months of work to do. If the bottom was to come in right here, you still gotta wait for Jasmine to break above 1 cent. Like you gotta wait until price breaks above this right here. And then you gotta have to wait until price gives you a pullback. You gotta have to wait for either a double bottom or a higher low. Like there's so much work that the best thing to do is really just to stay patient, stay on the sideline. Trust me. Once we reverse back to the upside, I am going to be the person that goes from bearish to bullish because I want the market to go up. All right. I make the most when the market is going up, not when the market is going down. Anyways, appreciate you guys, man. Let me get ready for the Super Bowl, and I'll catch you guys next time.